Hi all, my name is Martin and this is ExcelMakers. In today's video, we will continue our series about pivot tables. However, today's video will be a little different. Instead of learning pivot tables as just a tool, we will focus on how to use pivot tables in real world practice. Our task today is to perform a sales analysis for an international company. We will aim to answer key questions like: was the forecast met? Is there a problem in any office or product? Are there any visible trends? Pivot tables, among other tools, will help us find these answers. Let's dive in and see how we can use them effectively in real life scenarios. Before we start, let's check the data we have today. As I mentioned, we have sales data for multinational company with the detail to office, period, forecast values, sales values, product, salesperson, or other information. We have data for the first 6 periods of the year, so we have complete data for quarter 1 and quarter 2. Now let's start with analysis. As first, I would like to compare the forecast and sales, and by this I would like to answer the question if the forecast was met. And easily we can put on the left forecast values, on the right sales values, and sales values should be at least equal to forecast. There are many ways in Excel how to compare the data. And because this is the series about pivot tables, we can use pivot table for this. So when I click anywhere in the data, now click Insert and Pivot Table, you can see that automatically selected sales data because the data are formatted as a table. And as location, we can choose existing worksheet. And I pre-prepared this sheet forecast versus actuals to locate it. Now we have dialog window for pivot table. In the beginning, we can create very simple pivot table just to answer if the forecast was met or not. So for rows, I can choose, for example, office. And for the values, we need to choose forecast and sales. By the first view, you are able to answer if the forecast was met or not. And we can answer that forecast wasn't met, but only slightly. Now, with this very basic table, we are able to answer if the forecast was met or not. Of course, this is not enough. We need to also know if for some office was the result good. We need to know why. And in the contrary, if the result wasn't good, we need to also know why. And before we start to analyze the data in detail, I would propose to use some KPI to know from one number if the forecast was met or wasn't. If you don't remember how to apply calculated field to pivot table, feel free to watch my video with the reference on the right. Calculated field you can apply when you click anywhere in the pivot table, click pivot table analyze, fields, item and sets on the right, and first option is calculated field. When I open it, I have dialog window for creation of calculated field. As name we can type forecast versus actuals, and as formula I would like to see the comparison of sales in the forecast. When I click OK, I have new column with only value 1, but the reason for this is that I don't use the percentage. So when I click anywhere in the pivot table, here on the right in the values, I can click to value field settings, number format, and in number format I can set percentage. We can use 2 decimal places. When I click OK, and again OK. Now I have this calculated field in percentage. When I have calculated field forecast versus actuals, I don't need forecast and sales anymore because I see the comparison in one value. So when I click again to pivot table, I can remove some of forecast and also some of sales from the pivot table. Now let's go to more detail. As first, we can add quarters to columns. So when I go to pivot table fields and check the quarter, it is added to rows, but I would like to see it in columns. Yeah, and now when I have it quarters in columns, now we see where the difference emerged. You can see that in München, we overfilled forecast. We already know it, but now we have the detail also for quarters. But there is obvious issue in Oslo, and also Paris is not ideal. Prague looks quite fine. But this is still too little detail to know what was the reason for not meeting the forecast. So as next, we can also add the product to our table. So when I go again to pivot table fields and check the product, it can be in rows. Of course, we can use also columns, but it is nicer in the rows. And now we can see that in München, Oslo, and Paris is sold product A. In Paris, we are also selling the product B. And in Prague, we are selling only the product C. So when I check product C, it looks fine. We met the forecast. In product B, it is basically the same. Where we have the issue is the product A. In München, it is not a problem, but definitely in Oslo and also in A. When it is the case for the individual product, I would like to also see who is the sales manager for this product. So when I check also the salesperson, we can see that in every city we have one sales manager, and in Oslo we have Jane Smith, and in Paris we have Emily Clark. So what could be the output of our analysis? At least we need to ask to Jane and also Emily what happened in Oslo, what happened in Paris with product A. There can be several answers for this. For example, we lost some customers, or we had to reduce the prices for some reason, or some big order was moved from quarter two, where we have only 71% of forecast fulfillment, was moved to quarter three or later. Until now, we just compared forecast versus actuals in the different levels of detail. I would like to see also just sales, how they evolve during the time. So I would like to compare what was the sales in quarters by the different levels of detail, and also do the same comparison in periods. So what I can do is to copy paste this table to the next sheet, time trends. I would like to see in rows only office, product is not important for now, also salesperson, and also sum of forecast versus actuals, because I would like to see only sales. And what I can do is also move quarters to rows. And now I would like to sort the data by the sum of sales in quarters. So how to do it? When I click to row labels, more sort options, but as first in select field, I need to select quarter, and now more sort options, descending, and quarter I can replace by sum of sales. So, and now data are sorted by office and then by the sum of sales in quarters. And what we can see is that in München the quarter two was stronger, in Oslo quarter one, in Paris quarter two, and also in Prague quarter two. So what we can say from this relative small amount of data is that quarter two is from some reason stronger than quarter one, because in three of four offices the quarter two was stronger than in quarter one. And also in the Oslo where the quarter one was stronger, the difference between these two quarters is not so big. Now when we have knowledge that quarter two is generally stronger, we can also add detail to period. So when I move period to rows, or just to check it and move it to rows, maybe we can remove the quarter because we have only 6 periods, so we don't have detail to quarter. And now again, when I click row labels, in select field, I select period, more sort options, descending, and sum of sales. Now we have data sorted by offices, and then by sum of sales by periods. Yes, something similar we just did for the quarters. So in München, the first two, or the two strongest periods was 6 and 5, May and June. In Oslo 2 and 3, Paris 6 and 5, and Prague 6 and 5. So what we can say as next is that we already know quarter 2 is stronger, and from this quarter 2, the strongest months are May and June, 5th and 6th month. It is interesting that fourth period, April, is quite weak in the comparison with May and June. Of course, this shouldn't be the end of sales analysis. It would be great if we have some historical data from at least from last year, and also if we have some forecast data for next periods within the year, and then we can continue in our analysis. Of course, the part of sales analysis should be some meeting with sales and also with management. For example, if we found that there is an issue in Oslo office, the sales manager should answer us what was the reason for this issue. Also, when we found sixth and fifth period is the strongest in the first half of the year, would be great if we are able to identify why this trend happened and how to react them and use it for the increase of our sales. And that's it for our sales analysis using pivot tables. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe for more Excel tips. Thanks for watching and see you next time.